Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Manchester City have problems, and problems that I think are kind of good problems in a way. Problems that other teams would die to have these problems, to be honest. They really would, because we're talking about problems like, oh, we got to win this amount of trophies. You know, when we talk about Manchester City, we do need to try and maintain some level of perspective. I think we do have problems. Now, on the pitch, there's some finer little minute details that Manchester City need to iron out. Pep Guardiola's got his work cut out for him this season. Last night against Brentford, I thought there was some glaring open spaces in that back line that we've seen throughout this season against Chelsea and against Spurs. But the fact that it happens now against Brentford, that's when the alarm bells start to go off for me. That's when it starts to get of a bigger concern, when lesser opposition that are further down the table start to highlight the fact that they can be exposed, that Manchester City can be exposed. And it doesn't really matter the level of opposition. I understand that Ivan Toney and Wissa, they're very good players and decent on the counter-attack. But, you know, they're not... I mean, Wissa's not as good as Ivan Toney, but it's just the glaringly openness of them, you know. And it was a scary first half. You were just waiting for that first goal to come from Brentford. And their first big chance, the first big chance of the game fell to them. And how often have we seen it this season? Manchester City going 1-0 down. It's frustrating. And the issue for me going forward is going up against the likes of Liverpool, which is round the corner. You know, they're riddled with injuries right now, Liverpool. So I'm not too... I'm happy about that, in all honesty. I'm happy about the fact that Liverpool are struggling with injuries, but I still know they've got speed. You know, Mo Salah's fully fit now, back from his hamstring injury, back from the AFCONs, comes straight onto the pitch against Brentford, you know, away at the G-Tech Community Stadium and scores a goal. So he's back. Diogo Jota's out. Arsenal are scoring a bag full of goals with speed as well. I'm wondering if Pep's starting to look at the team with almost like an NFL playbook. You know, against this team, or this standard of opposition, will play a certain way. Against this level of opposition, we'll play a completely different way. I'm hoping that's the case, because if we play like this and set up like this, so aggressive, with just the sheer number, the volume of players that we put into an attacking position, that's exciting. On paper, it's exciting. But it's not panning out like that. The games are so... They feel, for large periods of the game, they feel like we're offering not enough going forward, but there's quite a lot of a threat going the other way. We're very vulnerable at the other end of the pitch, and it scares me. You know, and surely Pep won't do that against Liverpool. Surely not. Surely that the likes of Mo Salah need to be looked after. Kyle Walker being afforded, given that licence to bomb forward down that right-hand wing. Surely not. On the left-hand side, Akanji, who had a great game yesterday. I thought he was fantastic. And another example of why Pep trusts him so much, because the guy's just like, you know, he's played right back, he's played centre back, he's played left back, he's played central midfield, he's played as a number 8 at times, where he's genuinely getting quite far forward. So Pep trusts him. I don't want to see him in midfield, personally. I don't think Akanji suits that position. But left back, I haven't seen him have a bad game there. You know, he's right-footed. It's a bit, you know, it's a bit unbalanced with the setup of the defence all being right-footed players. Pep likes to have a left-footed player in the left side of position, because of the way you receive the ball. You know, it's instinctual for a player to receive the ball on their left foot and away you go. Same on the right side. That's why Pep tends to do it like that, and a left-footed centre-back and a right-footed centre-back. And now we're doing 3 at the back. It's not quite as you know, important, as well as Manuel Akanji's ability to use both feet really, really well. So I was pleased with his performance, but... Before I go in, smash the like button, guys, if you can. Massively helps. And subscribe if you're new. I wanted to also get the match stats up, but I'm doing this live, so it's not quite as easy. That's not how you do it. That's not how you do it. Bear with me 1 second, guys. There we go. Can we go? There you go. Match player ratings coming up after the match stats. But these numbers that you can see on your screen right now, 70% possession to 30% against Brentford. That was exactly the same numbers against Chelsea. Same numbers against Chelsea. And what's weird as well, just jump into the passes as well, it's almost like people call City boring and it's predictable. There's some element of truth, not the boring part, but the predictable part is some element of truth to that. Because while I was changing these match stats, I was barely changing anything from the previous stats, because this graphic I have to change it from the previous game. It's saved on my computer from the previous game, just to give you a little insight behind the scenes there, backstage shenanigans and all that. But the number of passes, we completed 711 passes against Chelsea, and Chelsea completed 304 passes. That's mental. That's mental. I mean, what a coincidence that is. But I'm never changing these stats that much. They're always so close. So the percentage possession-wise was exactly the same. Passes-wise was virtually the same, bar one pass. XG's improved a little bit, and our accuracy in terms of shooting on goal, that's a lot better as well. But someone's calling me an amateur there, mate. Yeah, I am. Of course I am. I haven't been doing it long, mate. But yeah, I know what you mean. Truthful. I'll improve, mate. Give me time. Get off my back. God. Oh, but yeah, it seems... and here's me about to get on Manchester City players' backs as well, so I can't lie. But 25 shots, which is... I mean, we had... Was it 30 against Chelsea? 31, if I remember rightly, with 5 on target. So we've improved in that department. So we are getting a lot of opportunities, but it feels like we're outside the box again. We're resorting to shots from outside the box. Brentford got 6, 2 on target, 11 shots on target from City, 2.45 XG for Manchester City, which is good. We've underperformed in that regard, so we have still missed a few big chances. I think there's the Phil Foden opportunity that he needs to control. Bernardo Silva's header in the first half, that was a terrible miss. So we've had 5 big chances, hence the XG being a decent amount. And like I said, 712 passes to Brentford's 304. They had a big chance as well. Onyeka going through on goal, and that's what I've been talking about in the preview to these match stats. How open we are and how easy it was. You know, they were in from the halfway line. If you remember against Chelsea, Ben Chilwell got the ball and Raheem Sterling was in on goal within our half. You know, he was 5 yards inside our own half, inside Chelsea's half, sorry. And all he needed to do was dink it over the top, and he had the full half of the pitch to get in, and you're in. That's so dangerous and bordering on disrespectful to Chelsea. I understand why you can approach like this against lesser teams, Brentford, for example, but the facts are they are still getting in behind us, still. So there are problems that need addressing. I'm sure Pep will sort this out, but now on to player ratings. Let's see if this works, shall we? Hey, it works. Edison, who kept a clean sheet, so I think that's going to massively help his score. 90 minutes played, 32 touches. Get your player ratings in, by the way. I want to see what you think of each player's ratings. That's a lot of why I've gone live with this one as well, because I'm really curious. I want to hear your thoughts as to how well the City players are doing, who's standing out negatively and positively in your eyes. So get in the comments below, what do you give Edison out of 10? I've given him a 7.5. A lot of that score's to do with the fact that he's kept a clean sheet. I felt like I gave him man of the match against Chelsea. I thought he did really well against Chelsea. Big saves. Accuracy-wise, a lot of the dip in percentage accuracy that you can see there, which is way below his usual standards, but he was firing a lot of long balls, as you can see. 13 long balls, 6 of which were on target. Going up against Christopher Ayer and Zanka and Ben Mee. Even Erling Haaland's going to struggle against those giants in the defence of Brentford's defence. So, you know, it was almost inevitable that anything going up long was going to be fired back at us. And crosses coming into the box, Brentford dealt with them reasonably well, especially ones that were aerial. Anything that hard and low was a lot better chance of City getting on the end of it. But still, 2 saves, 0 punches, 1 high claim, 2 runs out. Both were successful. I thought it was decent. You know, the fact that he's got a clean sheet has absolutely helped him. Bino's giving him a 7. 7.5 for Samuel as well. Yeah, I think 7.5 is fair. It's difficult to rate goalkeepers, isn't it? It's difficult. I know you're having a laugh, mate, Mascals. I know you are, mate. But yeah, no, I think Edison's a difficult goalkeeper to rate. A lot of his score can come down to distribution because he doesn't always get in the headlines for shot stops. You know, so in typical traditional goalkeeping actions isn't really what he's all about at Manchester City. It's more along the lines of how's he helping in the build-up play. There was very little to do with regards to build-up play because we were pinning them back for the majority of the game. But I was still pleased with Edison, really pleased with Edison. And so far, I actually think there was the mistake against Chelsea that I actually forgot to mention. He got caught on the ball and we got away with it. I still gave him man of the match, even though I'd forgotten to mention that mistake. But I do think, you know, he's starting to shine a little bit again. I think there's moments of this season that he's stepped up. You know, there's a couple of big saves against Chelsea, 2 saves against Brentford as well. Saved that one-on-one against Onyeka, sorry. that we can't forget that. That step keeps the game at 0-0. And Manchester City would have prevented from going 1-0 down again, which is good. Really good from Edison. Moving on to Kyle Walker. Not his greatest game. People who followed this channel for more than a couple of weeks or so will know I'm a big defender of Kyle Walker. I know people have got it in for him, and I understand why, but, you know, I'm all about honesty on this channel because I don't think he had a great game yesterday. A lot of his game came down to how well is he going to attack, because he wasn't asked to do that much defensively. And the only time he was tested, and it's not even, his position was tested, he himself wasn't tested, because that ball was going in down his channel, down his side of the pitch. But it's not his fault he's not there. Pep's asking him to go forward. You know, you can't be in two places at once. Pep's asked him to get so far forward. I just felt like the majority of the first half, his first half performance really stands out in my mind for the number of crosses that he was putting in that was just not good. There was one moment in the first half that I thought was really good, and we've seen a lot of that this season. It seems to be a nice little ploy from Pep, a tactic from Pep that includes Rodri on the ball in midfield, dinking it over the back of a defence, with Walker with a late run. He shadows in, he ghosts into that far post position. Unmarked, always unmarked, because Foden or Bernardo Silva have tucked inside, pulling the fullback in, giving Walker a big, large amount of space to burst into at that right-back position. He gets in and he nods it across the face of goal. At the minute, you're thinking, brilliant, this is 1-0 Manchester City, and what a move this is going to be. And Bernardo Silva needs to apologise to Kyle Walker and say, I'm sorry I've not got you assist there, mate, because what a header that was across goal. Great run, great ball from Rodri. Should have been 1-0. Bernardo Silva whiffs his header. It was a woeful finish from Bernardo Silva, but still, Kyle Walker had other opportunities in that first half to cross the ball. A little bit wayward for me, a little bit wayward. But he certainly didn't have a bad game. There was a moment in the second half as well, I think. He could have had 2 assists, really, thinking about it. If Foden controlled that ball from Kyle Walker, second half cross, you know, if he brings that under his spell, Phil Foden makes it 1-0 Manchester City. Kyle Walker should have been saying to Phil Foden, I could have had an assist off you, and I could have had an assist off you, Bernardo Silva. You know, he could be walking away with 2 assists in this game, and he would have a much higher score. But I can't give it him because he didn't get it in. And the other moments outside of those 2 decent crosses into the box wasn't great. As you can see, the numbers aren't that, you know, there's not that much to talk about. Again, 87% passing accuracy, a key pass, no tackles, 2 ground duels, he didn't win any of them, 1 clearance, and no interceptions, 6.5 for Kyle Walker. Ruben Diaz, I think we're seeing the best of him at the minute. I think he's starting to shine. He's really growing into this centre-back role. I don't think he got off to the greatest starts for his season. The last few games, though, I'm really, really impressed with him. What do you think? Get in the chat as well. I want to hear your thoughts on Ruben Diaz's performance lately and the rating that you'd give him. Because I've given him a 7.5, which I think is a decent 7.5. He didn't nearly get 7.5. He's not quite at an 8 because there's not too much to talk about outside of the... I mean, do you know what's interesting from Ruben Diaz as well is he's actually getting forward. He's actually posing a bit of a threat. There's a statistic that I haven't put on his graphic. 2 shots, 2 on target. You know, one of them's considered a big chance. One with a header that was saved, and one with a shot, which was like a decent enough shot. He sort of he spun his body onto it and whipped it straight at Flecken. Fucking Flecken, by the way. Sick of that guy. Sick of Mark Flecken. What the hell, man? The guy just returns into Manuel Neuer, doesn't he? Prime Manuel Neuer whenever he plays Manchester City. Where the hell was that performance against Liverpool? Do you know what I mean? Where was the Brentford defence against Liverpool? I promised you a mistake, by the way, from Christopher Ayer. I promised you that. I gave you that. He delivered. He delivered for me. Thank you, Christopher Ayer, for slipping. But other than that, Brentford's defence was like a big red and white wall. You just couldn't penetrate it. It was such a solid shape from Brentford. We could not get past them. You know, I feel like they might feel a little bit hard done by the fact that they could have come away from that game with a point. We deserved to win the game, in my opinion, because we are the only team that really took the game and wanted to score goals. And I always favour the team that does that. I always think, well, they're the ones that deserve to win because they're the team that tried to score the goals. Brentford tried to steal something. We're going up against teams that tried to steal something, but you play with what you've got. You use the tools at your disposal, and that's what Brentford and a lot of teams in the Premier League, that's their approach to Manchester City now, stealing something. And it can be quite effective. You know, don't knock teams for playing the way. They're playing to their strengths because they haven't got our strengths. Our strengths are ball possession and should be creating clear-cut chances, and that's one area we're not, doing clear-cut chances. There's a difference between an opportunity and a chance for me, and we're creating opportunities right now, and plenty of them, 25 to be specific. In terms of clear-cut chances, they're not that many, and that's a little bit of a criticism towards City, but also a well done to the defences that we're going up against right now, because they're solid. It's so difficult to get past them. So difficult. Ruben Dias would do well in a team that played like that, in my opinion, in a team that played defensively, because he loves that side of the game. His ball distribution and his overall ability as a technical player, I think, is decent. He's good enough to play for Manchester City, so he can't be bad. But in terms of the style of player, he is our out-and-out defender. He's the man, he's the brave one, he's the one who puts his neck on the line, his face on the line, he throws his body at everything, and he loves it. And I love him for doing that. Do you know what I mean? So 7.5 for me. 74 touches, which is really low for Ruben Dias. Lately, he's been getting 100 touches, which shows how often Brentford actually came forward, especially in that second half. There wasn't much of a threat from Brentford in that second half, but in the first half, there was a fair bit of defending to do for Ruben Dias, and he delivered. 93% passing accuracy, a tackle, 6 clearances, 7 ground duels. He won 4 of them. 2 out of 4 aerial duels won against Ivan Toney as well, which is decent going. And 3 interceptions. A couple I remember really stepping forward. They were really big, powerful interceptions. Reading the game really well, Ruben Dias. And lately, I think the last 4 or 5 games of going backwards, I've been impressed. I've been impressed by Ruben Dias. I really have. So I'm hoping that can continue, because he's leading that line really well. It's just, there are times in the game where he looks to the right of him and goes, oh, there's no one there. No one there. It's just me then, is it? Just me. I'll look after the counter-attacks. Don't worry about it. I'll stay at the back. Don't worry. It's like, fuck's sake, man. The guy needs some support. We can't expect him to defend counter-attacks on his own or even with one partner. It's frustrating. And I'm really curious to see what Pep's going to do to fix this. I really want to know what he's going to do against Liverpool as well, because you tell me you can't do that against Liverpool. Right. Who's next? Manuel Akanji. 90 minutes played, 123 touches. There you go. I mean, compared to Ruben Dias, who had 74 touches, he was heavily involved in that game. And for me, he gets 8 out of 10. As you can see, he's not man of the match. Anyone who's wondering how I identify that, the numbers in gold, which makes him an extra special player for getting gold. But no man of the match for Manuel Akanji. Very close to getting it, in truth, because I thought he was brilliant. These numbers are great, by the way, and it's not just, these are defensive numbers that I'm showing you. Is 98%, by the way, and I think it was 108 passes. 108 passes with 106 completed. And this guy wasn't playing sideways passes all game. He was key passes in there as well. He was breaking the lines. He fed one right through the channel into Oscar Bob. A really good pass. There was a lot of brave passes from Manuel Akanji, and he was piercing their lines really well, breaking their midfield, not breaking their defence, but breaking their midfield with some of his passes. And to maintain such a high passing accuracy has to be why Pep keeps putting him in the team, because performances like that are the answer to what Pep wants. Brilliant from Manuel Akanji. It really was. Defensively sound as well. 1 tackle, 2 interceptions, 2 ground duels, and won 1 of them, 3 clearances and a block shot as well. 8 out of 10 for Manuel Akanji. Fantastic for me. What do you think? 8 Samuel's gone for. Akanji was great, says Mahmood. Thoughts on Mbappe? We've got Akanji, mate. That's my thoughts on Mbappe. Manuel Akanji, mate. Oh, I don't know. I don't think I'd want Manuel Akanji to look after Mbappe, to be honest. As much as I love Akanji, Mbappe's speed, there's only really Kyle Walker that could deal with him. But if you think, my general thoughts, he's a great player with a mediocre attitude, in my opinion. I don't think he defends enough. But that's my thoughts on Mbappe, just to answer your question, Mahmood. Right, moving on. We've got John Stones. Decent performance from John Stones. Good to see him back and getting a full 90 minutes. He's another player that needs to be wrapped up in cotton wool, protected. Not quite to the standards of Manuel Akanji. Didn't have as much impetus going forward as Manuel Akanji, but still a really solid performance from John Stones. I don't think either of them really pushed into midfield. It was quite like, it's hard to explain how these two played, but they sort of played as like inverted fullbacks, but not quite there. Do you know what I mean? There was sort of like there's a space on the pitch that there's no word for. You'd need to put one of those graphs on the pitch with the segments, with the numbers of what part of the pitch they played in. They were just beyond the halfway line, not quite in a fullback position, but quite high up. They were propping up the corners of our attack quite well. John Stones on the right and Akanji on the left, with Rodri in the middle. They were just propping up the attack and keeping City maintaining possession in the attacking third really well. And I think both Akanji and Stones did a really good job of that. 97% passing accuracy from John Stones, really good. 4 out of 5 aerial duels, again going up. Unless all those 5 duels were against Wissa, who's not the biggest guy in the world. I imagine some of them, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I imagine some of those aerial duels are against Ivan Toney, which is always great going, because he can leap, man. He's so good in the air. 3 clearances, no tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 ground duel. He never gets many ground duels, John Stones. He's such a clever defender. He's like Maldini, do you know what I mean? He comes off with clean shots, John Stones. You don't see him sliding in for last-ditch tackles. He's not a desperate defender because he doesn't need to defend desperately. If that makes sense to you, he reads the game. He comes off with clean shirt, clean shorts, clean socks, clean knees. He doesn't be slide tackling everywhere because he reads the game. He positions his body in the right place all the time. He doesn't enter into ground duels because he doesn't need to. He'll intercept the ball more often than not. You know, he reads it so well, and that's the sign of such a high footballing IQ defensively. And I think John Stones is brilliant at that role. And I thought he was decent. 7.5 for John Stones. Now, Rodri. Solid. Really good performance from Rodri. I mean, when's he not good? You know what I mean? These numbers are always the same. And I'm starting to think this guy's just... I say starting like I've just figured it out. I've been saying it for years, to be honest. But not for years, but for this year. The guy should be looking at Ballon d'Or. You know, he's the best midfielder in the world. Pep said it in his interview after the game, in fact. The best midfielder in the world. Because what can't he do? You know, in his position, if you played him up front, I reckon the guy could get 10, 15 goals a season. Do you know what I mean? If you put him up front, I wouldn't be surprised if he got 10, 15. Not Haaland standards or even Alvarez standards, but I wouldn't be surprised. The guy can finish. You know what I mean? He holds the ball up really well. I think what couldn't he do? You know, he's a big guy. I bet he could save a few. Put him in net. Do you know what I mean? Give him a whirl. What can't he do? Left back, right back, centre back. He has played centre back for Spain numerous times alongside Laporte. Central midfield, number 8, playing in the 10. Maybe a winger. I wouldn't want to see him on the wings. That's one area I probably wouldn't want to see him on, just because he's not got an out-and-out speed. But even dribbles, you know, maybe not. Maybe I'm talking bollocks. Maybe he could play on the wing. 3 dribble attempts, 2 were successful. Do you know what I mean? It's better than Jack Grealish numbers for dribbling. You know what I mean? So the guy's insane. He's absolutely insane. 8 out of 10 for me. 126 touches, typical. The nucleus to our midfield. 89% passing accuracy, 5 key passes. As I said, 3 dribbles, 2 completed, 6 out of 8 aerial duels won, 5 out of 10 ground duels, and he lost the ball 14 times. I always introduce the possession lost for midfielders. I don't do it for defenders because those numbers are always quite low. But with regards to midfield, I think it's quite important to factor in. Anyone who's wondering what possession lost means, it could mean anything. When you've given the ball to the opposition, giving it out for a throw in, a misplaced pass, being caught offside, giving away a free kick, or anything along the lines of giving the opposition the chance to have the ball. So yeah, 14 times he lost the ball, but yeah, brilliant from Rodri. More of the same, please. Just do not get suspended, do not get injured. God, the idea of not having this man, it would end our season. If we lost him for 3 months or something, that's season over for me. Season over. It's done. It's like, what are we going to do without Rodri? I can't even imagine. Right, quickly, Kovacic. This is a quick one because we're talking about 8 minutes of football. But I very nearly didn't include him because there's so little to talk about. But the reason I do want to talk about him is because of what he's offered in that 8 minutes. He filled me with confidence. He came on, he got the ball. I think he beat a player. There's no dribble successful there, but I'm surprised it's not considered beating a player. But he carried the ball really well. There was a moment in that 8 minutes where he got the ball. He didn't burst past a player, but it was almost past a player, but he was carrying the ball really well. As you can see, passing accuracy is 100%. It's easy to complete 8 or 9 passes. You know, when you get making 100 passes, that's when you want to see what your actual accuracy is. But I wouldn't mind seeing him alongside Rodri. I feel like that was a good game for him. to play alongside Rodri. Someone who can control. And he's got that guile about him. He's got that cute little pass, the awareness, that cutback, that one where he's looking at the winger, looking over there, maybe firing a long ball over to Bernardo Silva or over to Kyle Walker, and then bang, pass goes that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one sees it. He's that guy. He's that guy who cuts it. He cuts it and breaks the line, and all of a sudden the whole defence has got to twist their body. Shape's been completely split open because the momentum was shifting over the pitch, and he cuts it back the other way. He's a clever player, Kovacic. I really believe he's been underutilised a little bit this season, and I don't think everyone speaks that highly of him, quite as highly as I'm speaking of him, but I don't want to see him have to defend. That's the issue when he's in that position alongside Rodri. I'd rather see Rodri being the sitter and Kovacic being a bit of a up and down, number 8, you know, and Rodri looks after the space behind him a little bit. But that then gets rid of Rodri's qualities going forward, so it's like, I'd rather have Rodri on the pitch over anybody, but you know, it's the give and take. Rodri has to sort of sit deep and Kovacic pushing forward. And against Brentford, we could probably afford to push them both forward quite aggressively. I don't see why not, to be honest. But Kovacic came on, 8 minutes of football, 6 out of 10 for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. Moving forward now, Phil Foden, not his greatest game. I thought he could have done better, and he will do better going forward. Knowing Phil, he will bounce back. I say bounce back, it wasn't a bad performance. Couple of opportunities that was just a bit sloppy. That one I've mentioned already, the Kyle Walker cross, was a brilliant ball from Kyle Walker into the feet of Phil Foden. If he controls that, it's 1-0. You know, there's no missing from there. Phil Foden would have buried that, 100%. He just needed to stop that ball dead and bang, 1-0. Then there was the opportunity in stoppage time where he goes through on goal. His ability to burst into that space, it was a wide space, but the speed gets him into that position, but he's got to get his shot off earlier there. He's got to fire a shot much quicker than that. Wrong decision was made trying to go round Flecken, and it was a good bit of goalkeeping from Flecken to outstretch and get his fingertips just tipping it off the toes of Phil Foden, but still, there's an all-round contribution. I thought there was little moments from Phil that he could have done better. His decision-making, he oversimplified things. I would like to have seen him be a little bit braver with it. Normally he is. Normally he is that guy that's braver with things. Like I just said about Kovacic cutting that ball. He often played the simple pass a little bit too much for me, which is great for ball retention, but that defence needed some aggressive midfield creativity being applied to their defence to try and break them open a little bit sooner than we did. And Phil Foden could have contributed a little bit more, but he's not got bad numbers, has he? Let's be honest. 3 key passes, 92% passing accuracy, 6 shots, a little bit wayward, 2 only on target, 3 ground duels, he only won 1, 2 dribbles. I want to see him dribble more as well. The guy's like insane at dribbling, but he never seems to take that many people on. His dribble attempts are always quite low for Phil Foden. I think he can beat most people when he tries. See a little bit more from Phil. 15 times he lost the ball. 6.5 for Phil Foden. What do you think in the chat? Samuel's gone 7. 7.5. But yeah, 8. Yeah, I might be a little bit harsh on Phil there, to be honest. He might have bumped up to a 7, but the fact that those one-on-ones is what I've bumped his score down, because he should have scored. He should have scored in yesterday's game. Really should have scored. But yeah, moving on. If I can find my little cursor, there we go. Who's next? Jeremy Doku, who came on for 29 minutes for Oscar Barb. 33 touches, 93% passing accuracy, a dribble. He completed it. No key passes, 7 crosses. 2 were accurate. 2 ground duels, 1 won. 3 times he lost the ball. 6 out of 10 for Jeremy Doku. There is not too much to talk about, really. He came on and he had a lot more space than Oscar Bob, so I felt like it would be harsh to compare the two. One, because Oscar Bob had more time on the pitch, but a lot less space to have any impact. The moment Doku comes onto the pitch, they were 1-0 down, I think, after about 5 minutes after that. 5-10 minutes after that, because I think it was about the 70th minute, Haaland scored. In which case, that last 20 minutes, Jeremy Doku's playing against a team that's coming forward a little bit more. They've come out of their defensive shape and started to go forward a lot more and create spaces for Doku to get into. I feel like if Oscar Bob had that amount of space to get into, he could have been a bit more lethal. Jeremy Doku didn't come on and do anything wrong. He didn't have a bad game. There was a moment where he did that dribble successfully, beats his fullback, and he was just getting knocked off the ball, and he was unbalanced when he was getting his shot away. But still, end product is something I want to see more from when it comes to Jeremy Doku going forward. Not a bad performance, though. I think it's going to be really interesting to see who starts against Bournemouth now, though, because I think Oscar Bob, while he didn't, light up the Etihad last night, he didn't do anything like sensational, Oscar Bob. But I'll get onto him now. The debate is realistic now. I think I'm a massive fan of Oscar Bob. My concern is, what start? I mean, could we play both in either wing? Oscar Bob on one side, Jeremy Doku on the other. That's certainly a possibility. Certainly a possibility, but Doku or Oscar Bob against Bournemouth is going to be really interesting to see what Pep does. I'm swaying more towards Oscar Bob, to be honest, because on recent form, Doku's not really hit the heights that I say grown to expect. I mean, we're talking the first month or 2 months of the season. Let's be honest, he got off to a flyer. Since his injury, he's had a bit of a dip, but still, I still believe that Oscar Bob's now very much part of that conversation, which is great news for City, great news for Pep that we've got these choices. But let's move on to Bernardo. Again, a little bit sloppy. I've bumped his score down. There you go. Big chance missed. That was too big an error to ignore. We can't be missing chances like that, Bernardo. It wasn't even close, was it? I mean, I was saying in the watch-long that I'm expecting some magical play from Bernardo Silva. He didn't quite deliver yesterday, Bernardo Silva. I think he struggled to impact the game. He didn't play badly other than that one miss, but it stood out to me. It was a real moment of disappointment from his performance overall, because that should have been in the back of the net. It's such a shame that the move was so good as well. We'd caught them. We'd set a trap. We'd pulled them across the pitch and Walker drifted in. It was perfect. Such a good move. And if he just twists his neck muscles a little bit more, and that's 1-0 Manchester City, and it went well wide, didn't it? It went well wide, but other than that, he was okay. Kept the ball ticking. Couple of nice turns in the penalty area as well. We were playing a lot of football in their box at times, of which he was a big part of that. But it was a lot of like triangles, really tight space triangles that were difficult to manufacture a chance out of such small spaces like that. But, if you want a man to control the ball in small spaces, there's him, Foden, these types of players that are just the perfect players to play in such small spaces. But 5 key passes, as well, that's really good. So I might be a little bit harsh on Bernardo Silva with a 6.5 there, but it is that I would have been a 7 without that chance. I really think I would have given him a 7 had he not missed that big opportunity for Manchester City. But 3 dribble attempts, 2 were successful, 13 times he lost the ball, 2 out of 5 ground duels. Okay, I'd like to see more from Bernardo Silva. 6.5. Oscar Bob, 7.5 for me, because I thought he was really decent. And that one moment that stands out, I think most City fans, everyone in the stadium, every City player, every Brentford player will have think he's going to hit this first time. When that ball comes out to him, you're thinking he's about to hit it. And that first touch was just sensational. He just sold. It's such a weird thing to have done as well. It was almost like the way he knocked it in front of the player with his side foot like that, to control it so perfectly like that. It was just sublime football. It really was. It was so good. And he should be coming away with a goal. And then to see Ben Mee clear it off the line, I feel harsh for him. 7 for Oscar Bob from Samuel. Fair enough, mate. But 7.5 for me. I feel like that 0.5 is just a little bit of bias in there, a little bit of more hope from me. I'm wanting him to do better than he's actually did last night, and I think he still did really well. 5 dribble attempts, 3 successful, 1 shot, the one we're talking about, was on target, cleared off the line, so unlucky not to get himself a goal. 85% passing accuracy. He feels like a blend of Doku and Grealish to me. I feel like he's what we've been asking for. That whole debate of Grealish versus Doku, which isn't a debate I'm too keen on talking about. It's like we've got both players. They both play for City, so I'm happy about that. But the facts are that I feel like Oscar Bob's like slap bang in the middle of the two. And he's got more versatility. Not so much more than Jack Grealish, because I think Jack Grealish could come inside and play central. I can't see Jeremy Doku ever playing as like a number 10. Whereas Oscar Bob, I feel like he could play across the whole span of midfield, playing in the pockets, playing as a left winger, playing as a right winger. And I think Pep's already played him as a false 9 striker as well at times. And in the pre-season, he played a few minutes up front. I think we saw a glimpse of him in the FIFA Club World Cup going up front a little bit as well. And he can finish. He's got a tight control in tight spaces. He's got a vision for a pass. I'm struggling to see why he shouldn't be starting these games now. There's no reason. I mean, I said it after the Newcastle game that to come on and have the impact like he did was sensational. But the confidence that must have been oozing through his veins after that Newcastle game, it might have petered out a little bit, because of Pep not playing him. And Pep's held his hands up and said, "I'm sorry, I want to have played him. I just haven't. I haven't had the opportunity. The players ahead of him, they've deserved the minutes more." But now Oscar Bobb's he's not even knocking on the door anymore. He's banging the door down. He's saying, "Pep, he's making it. It's like you can't ignore him now. You can't pretend him." Or I say the word disrespect, but it's like, oh, he's a young lad. He's an academy player. We didn't pay big money for him like we did for Doku. While it's not massive amounts of money, we still spent decent wedge of cash on Jeremy Doku, which adds pressure to the whole image of Doku. Like, you can't spend that amount of player on a player and not play him. Same with Jack Grealish being £100 million. The price tag plays a part, I think. The fact that he's come through the academy means Pep's probably given that freedom to be a little bit more sparing with him. And I don't think they needs to do that anymore. I think we just get him in. Just get him in. Forget the price tags. Forget them. Get this lad in for me. And I would like to see him start now against Bournemouth. I really would. But would you? Beyond belief, he did well coming back after being out of the first team for a while. Absolutely, mate. He's fantastic, says Hayden. Good to see you, Hayden, mate. Hope you're doing all right. He's closer to Jack than Doku, Estet World says. Yeah, probably so. But, look at the dribbles. 5 dribble attempts, 3 successful. Grealish doesn't even attempt that amount of dribbles in a game. So, there is some sort of midway house between the two players, but I probably agree with you a little bit more. 60-40. 60-40. 60 closer to Jack Grealish, 40 towards Doku. But, I mean, so young as well. Same age as Jeremy Doku as well, which we need to remind ourselves of how young these lads are, how young they actually are and how well they're playing. They're going to be superstars, these guys. They really are. The future's bright. The future is bloody blue. Right, moving on. Right, this is one I'm not really looking forward to talking about. Alvarez. Not a great day at the office for Julian Alvarez. One big chance created is the highlight of those stats. There, 3 key passes is not bad at all, but the 3 shots, we all saw that in the first half. They were just so bad. That's the issue. If he's not getting his shots on target, it's like, why are you playing him, Pep? Do you know what I mean? It's like he's not... Okay, he's created a big chance. He's playing a square peg in a round hole. He isn't a midfielder. I think we've all agreed that he does a good job at filling in for players, for Kevin De Bruyne, but it's almost like that's his job now. He is that player. He's the midfielder now. And I don't agree with that. I don't feel comfortable in hanging my hat on Julian Alvarez as a Manchester City number 10. I mean, obviously Kevin De Bruyne, I wonder whether De Bruyne would have played. I'm wondering which is something that's worrying me, by the way. Pep saying that he's he's tweaked his hamstring. It's not quite as bad. It was precautionary. I don't know why he would say that, then put him on the bench. He didn't even warm up. Was it just like a token gesture to play him? Because if he's not playing, I don't know why you do that, Pep. Why just Sissoko wasn't on the bench yesterday? Give him the experience of being in the first team. If De Bruyne is not fit, unless he's going to be a presence in the dressing room, and he doesn't need to be in the squad, De Bruyne, if he's not going to be doing anything, and you know that, if you're not even going to warm him up, and he's going to have no minutes on the pitch, why have a pointless player on the bench? That baffled me, that did, from Pep Guardiola. I don't understand that. And there are kids that could have gone on that bench and gained experience from just sitting on the bench and getting a buzz of, look at me, I'm on the bench of Manchester City. The kids that would appreciate that. De Bruyne doesn't give a shit about that because if he's such a high-end player, he's such a top... Like, he's been there 1,000 times. He knows exactly what it's like to be a Manchester City first-team player. It's his bread and butter. I'd say, what could he be? A presence in the dressing room? He doesn't need to be in the squad to do that. He could do it in his normal clothes. He could be dressed like me. He'd probably dress a bit better than me, to be honest. But actually, I don't know. I've seen how some of these players dress. You see that fashion show the other day? What the fuck were some of them wearing? Looked like lampshades, half of them. But anyway, he could have been in his normal clothes and just talking to the players. If that's what he's there for, as a presence, he doesn't need to be on the bench to do that. I'm confused by that. Really confused by that. With that in mind, I imagine that's why Alvarez played, because if he was fit, then surely De Bruyne plays ahead of Alvarez in that role. I don't know. I feel for Alvarez. I do feel like he's getting a lot of stick right now, and he's getting stick off me right now. but it's not really his fault. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what do you expect? He's not playing in his best position. Whether he would play if Haaland went on a barren run of 4 games without a goal, but I mean, people call Haaland a barren run for 1 game now. Do you know what I mean? Or 2 games is like a nightmare scenario. Haaland hasn't scored for 2 games. In which case, I wouldn't mind. If Haaland does go on a barren one, I wouldn't have a problem with Alvarez playing up front. It's just, he's struggling to impact the game from his position in midfield. And I don't think it's that subtle anymore. I think the layman can see this now. Me and you can see this. But Pep's persisting. But without De Bruyne, what would he have done? What could he have done alternatively? If De Bruyne was never going to play, let's say he never played De Bruyne, and he didn't want to play Alvarez because he didn't trust him. Like, we're not filled with confidence with the idea of playing Alvarez in midfield. If that's not the case, he's going to pull off De Bruyne and Alvarez. What do you do? You push Phil Foden in there. You could play Núñez. Is that a better option than Alvarez for last night? You know, you could play Oscar Bob in there and bring Doku on maybe. Is that a guaranteed better option than Alvarez? I felt like he might have had to have played Alvarez yesterday because Alvarez, you know, his track record this season is really good. Lately, little less so, I'll grant you that. I'm trying to defend Alvarez here. I'm trying to find the logic behind Pep's thinking. Personally, I don't see him as a midfielder. I just wonder what the options would have been outside of not playing him yesterday. Not sure, to be honest. Certainly would have brought Foden inside, says Hayden. Yeah, I think Foden gone inside, but then who's on the right? You know? Would it have been Doku on the right and Oscar Bob in the middle? And, you know, Foden more central with Bernardo Silva? Could have worked. You know, Doku he's always played right wing. To be honest, his left wing is new to him, to be honest, because his career prior to that, his majority of his career has been as a right winger. But still, you know, Alvarez, I think there's still a massive future for him. I'm concerned about his future if he starts to not play him, because then we're into that Gabriel Jesus situation, aren't we, where we talk about the player from, you know, he's not getting enough minutes. He will get frustrated. There's strong rumours that Real Madrid are very much interested in him. He's got his eye on Real Madrid in the summer. They're the rumours that I've heard, which I'm not sure I want to believe them or not. There's a large part of me that's rejecting those rumours. I'm in denial a little bit because I do not want to lose Julian Alvarez because he's one of those players that I think he's not finished growing yet. We forget how young he is as well. The guy's a trophy magnet as well. Wherever he goes, there's silverware follows. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's a coincidence. He's a dangerous player. And I also don't think we should be doubting Pep too much to the point that Pep has so much trust in this guy. But I can't deny what I see, and I'm not going to pretend I don't see what I see or say what I see, which is I don't think he had a good game yesterday. His shooting boots, he had 2 left feet yesterday. And he wasn't good enough yesterday. He wasn't good enough at all. 95% passing accuracy, 3 key passes, 3 woeful shots, 1 big chance created, 2 out of the 7 ground duels were won. So 12 times he lost the ball, 6 out of 10 for me. Who's next? The last man to speak about, Erling Haaland, man of the match for me, purely because he's that guy that won us the game. Without him, we don't win the game. I have to give it to Haaland. I did put a poll in the chat, actually. I want to see. That's interesting as well. Let's have a look. We've got, from my man of the match options, I gave Haaland, Rodri and Akanji. Other name in the comments. Sorry if I've missed anyone who put someone else who they wanted to be man of the match. But it's pretty evenly split, to be honest. 35% Haaland just edging it. 31% for Rodri. And 30% for Akanji, which I like that. That's such this great fan base we've got then, isn't it? Because I struggled with my decision, to be honest. I didn't give it Haaland easily. What did I give Rodri? I'm not going to put it on the screen. But I gave Rodri 8 out of 10. Yeah, so there you go. I gave Rodri an 8 out of 10, and I gave Akanji 8 out of 10, and I gave Haaland 8 out of 10. So out of 10, I split them evenly, and you guys have done exactly the same in the votes, which is a great sign that we're of a similar understanding. We're on the same wavelength with regards to those 3 players. I've just given it Haaland because he was the deciding factor. You know, he's on the pitch to win games like that. chances that are few and far between, that are clear cut. Because I know you'll look at the stats and go 25 shots, 11 on target. We had chances, and we did have chances outside of Haaland's clear cut chances. The Bernardo Silva one and Foden's missed control in the second half. The Bernardo Silva one, that's clear cut. Other than that, I think the Foden one was almost clear cut. Haaland was absolutely clear cut. And he took his chance, he took his chance, and those are the chances that have been worrying me lately. How many of you, let's say last year or the start of this season, he goes through on goal like that, it was like, you turn away celebrating, don't you, at the halfway line? You're already going, yes, it's a goal, it's in, 1-0, 2-0, whatever it is. He's not even got into the penalty area yet. Do you know what I mean? It's a goal. It's a goal. Last night, I must admit, going off form, I was looking at it thinking, please score. Please score. Do you know what I mean? Because I didn't quite have that same level of confidence, and that's because he got a one-on-one against Brentford that was gifted to him. Flecken pulls out a really big right boot, saves it. All the chances he missed against Chelsea, horrible misses. That was in my mind a little bit, and I was thinking, hopefully, but that's why I'm here and he's on a pitch, you know what I mean? Because he's the man. He's just like, the mental capacity for Erling Haaland is like nothing I've ever seen in my life as a football player. I always equal him to Edison as well. Players that have just got massive cojones, monstrous balls. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely massive balls. Just nothing phases these guys. In particular, Edison, because how many times has he made given the ball away, a mistake? He'll try it again. He doesn't care. Ball comes down with two attackers sprinting at him. He'll bring it down and he'll side foot volley it to Kyle Walker. Do you know, that's Edison, mate. And he doesn't ever phase him. Nothing phases him. Cool as a cucumber. Haaland's exactly the same. Chance after chance against Chelsea. Miss after miss. You're thinking most strikers would shrink into their shells after that. They'd look at that and go, oh, you know what, I'm a bit worried about that. That form there I've picked up. I must take my next chance. I have to take my next chance, or the headlines are going to be, Haaland's not in form. Haaland's misfiring. Haaland at the wrong club. All that nonsense. You know what I mean? One major chance in this game, and he buries it. Comfortably buries it. And it was such an assured finish as well. And he took it quite early. I was surprised at how early he saw it, but he saw the gap down to Flecken's right-hand side, and he just whips it into that far corner. It was such a delightful finish. It really was. There was an element of Haaland's game that I liked in the first half as well that I wanted to bring up, as how he was able to... He was trying to draw Brentford's defenders out of their shape, and he was trying his best. He was involved in a lot of one-touch football on the edge of the area, who dropped a little bit deeper than he normally does. Normally he's always on the shoulder, isn't he, of the whichever centre-back he's up against. He's always like holding onto their shoulder, where he sees a cross coming in, then he'll push away from them, get further, create that 5 yards of space behind them, whether it's either to go further back and get a nod across goal or to the far post, or something to run onto where he can attack the ball at the near post potentially. He didn't do that as much yesterday. There wasn't as many crosses coming in for him. There was one Oscar Bob cross that should have come in a lot better from Oscar Bob. That was a far post run from Haaland. Foden was in there as well. I remember that. But other than that, I felt like Haaland was dropping deep, and they were bouncing off him in a good way. Do you know what I mean? They were bouncing passes off him, and he was maintaining possession while doing that. And it's not his strongest point. Ball possession isn't Haaland's strongest point. He wants the pitch in front of him. He doesn't want to have the goalkeeper behind him. He wants to see the goalkeeper at all times. That's how Haaland plays the game. But now he's learning to drop deep a little bit, pull a defender 5 yards out of his position, and who knows what space that's created behind. Alvarez needs to get in those gaps when those opportunities arise. Same for Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, whoever it could be, drifting into those pockets. But whenever he did come out, he was finding a blue shirt when he did. It was fired into him, 1-2, Haaland, brilliant. That was good play from Haaland. Nothing, I'm not writing overly sensationalising headlines here from Haaland, because he wasn't like the greatest Haaland number 9 forward performance I've ever seen, but it was good. It was good, and there was areas of his game that I think are weak areas that didn't show weakness last night. I thought they were good, really good. 32 touches, 94% passing accuracy. No key passes, 2 aerial duels, he didn't win any of them. 6 shots, 4 on target, so that's that accuracy. Closing that gap between shots and shots on target. Good, really good. 1 dribble attempt and it was successful. Finds the back of the net and wins Manchester City the game, which for me gives him man of the match. Really, really pleased with Erling Haaland. And that completes the player ratings. What do you think, Blues? What do you think? If you're watching after the fact, I want to hear your player ratings in the comments as well. Good to see so many of you in the chat as well. Hayden, always good to see you, my friend. John, Expensive RL, do you think Alvarez stays past the summer? I think so. I hope so, you know. If Alvarez wants to leave, he can, says Sleepy Sun. So you're not a big fan of Alvarez, then I take it. Anthony, John, what more do you want from Haaland? He had an absolutely incredible season last year. He's top scorer this season. Who on earth would who would you bring in to replace him? You have to remember he's human. Yeah. John, I see what you're saying, mate. Embarrassing by Haaland against Chelsea. Even Borough beat Chelsea and we drew against them. Yeah, he didn't have a great game, John, but you have to, you know, we can't be moving the goalposts every week. Do you know what I mean, mate? It's, you know, we can't be celebrating. We need to celebrate the fact that he scored the goal yesterday. We can't be talking about Chelsea now. We need to move on from the fact that he missed those chances. Forget that now. Yeah, it's done. The game's finished. Let's celebrate what he has done now, because that's a closer to the present day of what's happened. Recency bias, you might call it, but let's, you know, the most recent game was last night. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that he scored the goal. If you want to go back, if you do want to go back, go a bit further back. Go back to the Everton game, where he won us that game as well. You know, scored 2 goals. We win the game 2-0. That's what he's on the pitch to do, mate. He's got to be afforded some slack when he misses chances, because he is like, who said it? Anthony said he is human. I agree. I understand the frustrations, mate, because I was fuming with him against Chelsea. I understand why you're annoyed, and I agree. I was annoyed with him as well, but the emotion rides high after the game, and I feel like now that that game's gone, I want to forget about the Chelsea game and look forward, knowing full well that Erling Haaland is absolutely going to score more goals than he misses, in my opinion. I feel like he's going to win us more points than he loses us. You know, and I mean, albeit that I feel like he cost us 2 points against Chelsea. Had he taken one of those chances, we win the game. Yep, 100%, I agree with you there. He won us 2 points yesterday, so he's redeemed himself immediately from the next game. Redeemed immediately. So let's give him a pat on the back. I really think we should give him a pat on the back. And I've given him one at least anyway with Man of the Match performance. But thanks so much for joining me in these player ratings. Subscribe if you're new, trying to grow the Typical City. I thought I'd go live today. Might start going live a little bit more often. Let me know in the comments if you've missed this, following on from this video, if you weren't in the chat live. Good to see you guys in the live chat as well, but I am considering going live a little bit more, try and build a little bit more of a interactive community. But yeah, no, it's really good to see you as well. Just to finish off with the final votes for Man of the Match. It was 34% votes for Haaland, 31% for Rodri, and 30% for Akanji. So Haaland just pips it. John, final word from John there. If he scores a brace against Bournemouth, then what? You didn't finish your sentence, mate, but I presume then you forgive him, do you, John? Come on, John. Come on, John, mate. He's not that bad, is he? Bloody Erling Haaland we're talking about. Top goal scorer, mate. He's been out for 3 months as well. Was it 3 months? It was nearly 3 months. Well, it was like 2 months, wasn't it? He was missing from like the 6th of December all the way to like the start of February. And during that time, no one even got to become the top goal scorer. In that time, he still stayed there. You know what I mean? So let's put some perspective on it. But again, brilliant to see you in the chat. And yeah, take care, Blues. I've got the match preview coming up for the Bournemouth game. I've got a watch along coming up on Saturday, 5:30 kickoff. Come and join me for that one. Really looking to that one. I might do the preview live as well, so I want to try and get into doing a bit more live things, like I was saying. Talk to you guys a little bit more interactively. It's fun. It is fun. Good to see you as always. Yeah, player ratings. Get in the comments below. Give me your player ratings. Take care, Blues, and I'll see you in the next one.